Hi, it's just David here with my weekly message. This week, I've got a probably an update on what's going to happen. Though obviously these things, one is always worried about committing ourselves to something in these times because things may change. So as you know, we've been Steam Church has been closed for the last month and a half to communal worship. We're not alone in this. Many churches have. In fact, in the Deanery, which is well in Hatfield, all the Anglican churches have been closed over that period, and some for longer. So we've been thinking about it on a kind of 2-week rolling program. And as you know, there's some good news recently. Good news that infections are falling. They're back to, I mean, they're still high, but they're back to where they were in the period of November when we were having communal worship. And also, of course, I think that the one thing which is a great success, and I don't think there should be any gainsayers to that really, is the vaccination program, which I think, by any measure has exceeded expectations and is rolling out. And I know it takes a couple of weeks for the immunity to build up, but looking at the figures, getting on for a quarter of the population has now had at least one jab, which gives a fairly high amount of immunity. As I say, no need to be complacent. We know there's worry about new variants. We know the infection rate is still comparatively high compared to last summer, and we know that of course to get the full protection of the vaccination, you need 2 doses, and you need to wait for 2 or 3 weeks after the second dose. So not complacent at all. But we did have a sort of first time really a sort of differences of opinion over whether we should sort of reopen for communal worship in the next 2 weeks. Because we kind of want to do things, by consensus, we decided that we won't. But what we did decide is actually, given that it does take a week or so to get these things up and running, what we would say is that unless there's a reverse to those trends, March the 1st, basically, we will open for communal worship. So 21st and 28th of February will be all online, but then from after that, from beginning of March, as I say, unless there's anything, or the government announces new restrictions, or there's some sort of big hike in the infection rate or something, we're planning to open for communal worship on March the 1st. Now, the 2 caveats to that, obviously. First one is we'll be back where we were at November, December. There'll be all the usual precautions about social distance and mask wearing. And secondly, also that, of course, we'll continue live streaming as we have done right through the year. And one of the things I always say in favour of opening to communal worship is, nobody apart from the clergy should feel obligated to be there. You might have a particular role, but it really doesn't matter. I think if you don't feel safe, or you've shielding, you've got vulnerable people that you see, etc., there should be no feeling, well, I must go to do X, Y, and Z. We fully understand these services at the moment have to have slightly different music. They have to have slightly different liturgy. Maybe you hear slightly more of the clergy voices rather than having people do it, lots of people taking part. That's life. We understand all that. So, they're apart, as I say, from sort of the people leading the service, by which I mean the sort of clergy and readers. There is no reason anybody else should feel that sense of obligation that perhaps they might normally do to be in church. If you feel, happier and more content staying at home and live streaming, that's fine. But as I say, there'll be a large number of people who've got at least some degree of immunity with vaccinations who may feel, now comfortable to come. I know some have had the second dose, several weeks ago. So, that would be great. So we'll see where we go, but that's just to kind of update you on the plan at the moment. So it's Lent. I suppose I want to say a little bit about Lent, and I think it is again, if ever there's a sort of year to eat one's words, I I suppose it's this year because I've kind of always I was a bit worried. I know people say, well, we give up something for Lent, but actually, rather than giving something up, and I think it's the rather than that slightly gets to me. Rather than give something up, I'll take something up. Now, I'm not against taking things up. I'm sort of all for it in a way. But I just worry about it, particularly if it's rather than giving something up, because I think we live in the most consumer society that has ever existed. So we have more stuff, more choice, uh, frankly, more indulgent than any other population ever has in the history of the world. And so I do think actually, then saying, well, I don't believe in giving anything up. I think, oh, really? I think, perhaps actually as a society, we do need to give some stuff up, if not for anything else, because of sort of environmental reasons and sustainability reasons. I mean, taking something else up is the danger is you just kind of create more stuff. So I think there has to be part of our Lenten discipline has to be a bit of old-fashioned self-denial, frankly, giving something up. And but I say I think probably this is a year to eat one's words, because I think probably I fully accept over the last year probably we've given up quite a lot of stuff, and we've probably had enough of giving stuff up, and probably do want to kind of get back to doing some of the stuff that we aren't at the moment. Now, it may be around Easter where we are able to do one or two more things. Again, we just don't know with the restrictions. But yeah. So this year, I'm quite happy for people to say that I'm not going to give anything else up. I'm going to take something up. But you might want to think about what that is, and you might want to. And I think this is what some people I think get a bit confused about, and I always use. Now it's probably in the parish magazine, but I always use the gardening analogy, which I think comes from sort of Anthony Bloom, who says giving up is a bit like pruning something. There's two ways of pruning something. You prune something because it's just too big and you want to make it smaller. But actually, there's a pruning where you cut away the dead wood, and actually that allows the plant to grow more. And I think that's what Christian self-denial is. Giving up chocolates in itself is not going to save the world. I fully understand that. But actually giving up chocolates, or giving up something, because we are creatures of habit, can just kind of, it's that little nudge that triggers us to think more deeply about what we take for granted, and then triggers us kind of into growth, rather like if you cut away the dead wood from a plant, it's triggered into thinking, oh right, okay, I've got room, and I now need to grow to kind of replace what's been cut away. And I think that's what sort of Lenten self-denial is about. So even self-denial in the Christian point of view is not simply about diminishing. Actually, for the Christian, self-denial is about growth. It's about the sort of leading up to the resurrection, and then there must be resurrection. I mean, after Good Friday, there must be Easter Day, and sometimes I think Christians get to Good Friday and think, this is all rather painful and good, and forget the joy and the new life and the vitality of Easter. So even when we're giving things up, I think, well, it is for growth. It is for vitality, and I think that's important to remember. So this year, don't really have to give up anything else apart from all the loads of stuff we've all had to give up. But do think about growth and vitality and what that might mean, and also what that might mean when, God willing, things get back to normal in perhaps in a few months' time. What might growth look like in that scenario after this extended period of restriction? Thank you.